Yesterday that grabbed my attention, and it was a three-parter. It was how tall am I? How much do I weigh? Questions I get asked all the time. So personal, by the way. And was I nervous about breaking into Hollywood for the first time? All right, so three-parters, here we go. How tall am I? I'm approximately 6'12", which is why every time people see me, they go, "You're a lot taller than I thought you would be." I think because all Hollywood actors are generally little shorts. I'm 6'4", despite what some reports have said that I was 6'5", but no. I'm 6'4", and as of this morning, I weigh 277 pounds. So there's the truth. Those are my stats. And was I nervous about breaking into Hollywood? That's such a great question. I was extremely nervous about breaking into Hollywood. And why? Because I started to quietly retire from professional wrestling when I was 29 years old. I had the most incredible run as a pro wrestler when I tapped into and I understood the value of being myself. And I had one goal every single night as a pro wrestler, which was to entertain the crowd as best I possibly could. I didn't care if I won the match, if I lost. I got beat more than I won in the WWE. So it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to connect with the people. And even though I wrestled in front of 20, 50, 100,000 people, I wanted it to feel intimate and I wanted the connection to feel real. So I found my power space in professional wrestling. And then when I had a goal to transition into acting, I knew then, as I was quietly transitioning when I was 29 making The Scorpion King, I knew then that in order for me to be a good actor and to have a career that had real longevity and not just in it for 2 or 3 years, become this hot new actor, make a couple of action movies, maybe a comedy or two, and then disappear. I didn't want that. I wanted to have a real long-lasting career that had weight and had value, and I wanted to become a real box office presence. I wanted to have real box office cachet, and I wanted to be the #1 man in the world of Hollywood in terms of box office draw. That was my goal at 29 years old, and I was prepared to work my ass off, but I also knew, I gave myself, honestly, a 10 to 12 year plan. It was a very long-term plan, and you never know what happens. Life is so unpredictable. And so I was really nervous because I also knew that historically, it didn't matter. Whoever was successful in another arena, whether you were a successful professional, just because you were a successful professional wrestler, did not mean in any uncertain terms that you were going to become a box office draw or a legitimate movie star, whatever that means. There were no guarantees. But the same thing applied for if you were a professional athlete trying to get into Hollywood, if you were an amazing entertainer, singer, trying to break into Hollywood, that your success does not automatically transfer to the box office. The box office and the big screen, the silver screen, is a very unique unto itself platform and machine. So I just knew there were no guarantees, and I also started looking around when I was a pro wrestler at that time. I started looking around the locker room and realized that for the first time in my life, I'd actually achieved all the goals that I wanted to achieve in the world of pro wrestling. And I looked around the locker room at all these amazing men who I had the honor of wrestling with, who we had the honor of doing great things together every night for years. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Triple H, Mick Foley, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho. That's just to name a few. We had an incredibly stacked roster. So I was nervous when The Scorpion King came out. We were tracking to do pretty good, but I also knew there was somewhat of a safety net there because it was still part of a Mummy franchise. So there was a built-in audience who was already inclined to support me in this movie. And then I had a wrestling audience too, who were at that time, they were inclined to support me too. They thought, okay, well, let's go support The Rock here. Rock, you got one shot with us. Let's see. So the Scorpion King opened, and it opened pretty good. We actually broke box office records for the month of April, which I was so grateful for. And then when I started making the transition into Hollywood, and I quietly retired from the WWE when I was, I think, 30 years old, 30 or 31. That's when the pressure was on, and that's when the heat was on, because now my contract was up with the WWE. There was no re-signing, and left under great terms, of course. Very close with Vince McMahon then, as I am still today, and that entire McMahon family. But I was nervous because the pressure was on, and then at that time also, I was getting really confused because the people that I had around me at that time were telling me that in order for you to become the box office powerhouse and presence and movie star, then you can't talk about wrestling, you can't use the name The Rock, you can't work out as much. There were a lot of you can'ts, and things can't just be about your physical prowess. You got to tone it down. You got to cover up your body. And that was a really, really hard transition for me, because something was really gnawing at my gut and my instinct that wasn't the right thing to do. However, when you're new to an environment and you want to make it so bad, and you want something to work so badly, oftentimes we can buy into what people are telling us, because these are people who have walked the walk and who are in the industry or have found success in the thing that you want to find success in. So we have the notion to listen to them. And I don't begrudge them, my team at that time at all. This was my decision ultimately that I had to make. So I bought into it, and I stopped working out as much. I did a ton of cardio. I lost a ton of weight. When you look back at some of those pictures from 2004, 5, 6, I mean, I look, maybe like I'm down to 210 pounds. And again, this is my comfortable weight. I'm 277, so I average somewhere between 265 and 270. And so I stopped talking about wrestling. There was a lot of things that were happening at that time. And when you look back in my career at that time, I mean, the movies, and you look back in my filmography, were they good movies? They were okay. Were they entertaining? I found that they were all very entertaining, because that was my bottom line, that I wanted to entertain, and I was trying so hard. I had multiple acting coaches, and I was trying to be a sponge as much as I possibly could. Now, that's my foray into the business, and typically in my life, I have never really had a slow ramp up into things. That's just the package that the good Lord delivered to me, and I signed for it, and it's like in the cards for me. Everything is extreme, head first into the fire, you sink or swim. From the time I was evicted out of our little efficiency in Hawaii, to me signing with University of Miami, who were the national champions at that time. After me, I only played 2 years of high school football, so I had a learning curve that I had to master, try to. My first wrestling match was not in a high school gym, as typically they are. It was in San Antonio, Texas, at a Monday Night Raw in front of 14,000 people. My very first wrestling match ever. So I have a tendency to go extreme, right? So, I was living in a way that was antithetical to how I felt, but still it was the extreme version, because I thought, okay, I'm going to cut everything else out that I love, and I feel like this is the way to go. When you look back at my career, those movies at that time, they were entertaining, they were so-so. The critics were really nice to me. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. But I wasn't hitting the home runs, and I wasn't being myself, and that's the thing. So finally, I had a big meeting at the agency around 2009, I think 2010, at the agency that I was at, I'm no longer at. I had a big meeting, one big come to Jesus meeting, and I said, this is it. Guys, at that time, when I first broke into the movie business, the biggest movie stars in the world were George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Will Smith. But there was no blueprint for a guy like me, who was half black, half Samoan, 6'4", 275 pounds, raising an eyebrow, talking a lot of shit out of this crazy world of pro wrestling. There was no, and who also just had an insatiable appetite to win, an intensity. So there was no blueprint for that. I had a big meeting in around 2010, and I told my people that because I felt my career was kind of on the precipice of either I was going to just fade off into the darkness and continue to maybe make movies that go straight to video, I don't know, eventually, or kind of hitting these movies that are hitting doubles, or I was going to break out and be the person that I wanted to be. So I had a big meeting, and I said, I want to have an incredible career. And I said, you look at the biggest movie stars in the world now, I want to take their model, but I want to make it better, and I want to make it greater. And I want to utilize social media in ways that's never been used before. And I don't know what that is. And that's okay that I don't have the answers, but I do need everybody in the room to buy into what I'm saying, have faith, and let's put our heads together and put our best effort forward. Because just because we don't see something in front of us doesn't mean that it can't be done. It just means that we haven't created it yet. And I thought I gave a really compelling, passionate speech. And I did, because everybody was looking at me like I had 3 heads. And I got a big ass head anyway, so you can imagine what but not in the positive way. They were like, okay, well, this guy's clearly smoking crack, because what you're pitching, we don't see it. And I felt that in the room. So I made a decision that changed the trajectory of my career, my life. I fired everybody. I said, you're all gone. I thank you for your efforts, but everyone has gone clean slate, clean sweep. I'm going to do this one way. I'm going to put people around me who not only are hungry to win and to succeed, but also buy into my vision, but also, more importantly than that, have the faith and understand the value in possibility. And just because we may not see something, and sometimes Hollywood can work in a conformed box. What works in Hollywood, then that's where everybody goes. What works in Hollywood, that's where everybody goes. So what I was presenting was, there's no blueprint for what I'm saying that we should do, but that's okay. Let's create it. So I signed with an agency, WME, partnered up with my ex-wife, who Danny Garcia, who started her management company, and selectively, strategically placed the best people around me. And I also went outside of Hollywood to get the best, brilliant business minds too as well, and how important that was, because building business enterprise was important to us. We started $7 Productions, and now obviously here I am today. So that is 14 minutes of your life you're never going to get back, but I was nervous about getting into Hollywood because, let me just back up. So once I made that decision and I surrounded myself with the team that I felt was going to lead to success, that was around 2010. Now, 10 years later, 2020, here I am, enjoying the career that I have today. Hungrier than ever, more intense than ever, vibrant, same dirty jokes, but great people around me, and that's the key. So success never happens alone. I firmly believe that. Success is a team effort. Even though my big ass head and face is forward facing and consumer facing, and I am always the one out front of everything. There was a team of people, not only behind me, but to my sides, who many of you guys don't see, who really make the whole thing happen. And so that would be my recommendation to you guys, is when you try something new, just because it doesn't exist, don't be afraid to try it. It just means it hasn't been created yet. A model for it hasn't been created yet. And there's also incredible power in being yourself. And that's what I did around 2010, when I hired those people. I said, I'm going to go back to the gym. I'm going to train the way I want to train. I'm going to embrace wrestling. Not only am I going to embrace my past of being a professional wrestler, starting making $40 per match, wrestling in flea markets. That is who I am. That's how I cut my teeth. Not only am I going to embrace my past being a professional wrestler. I'm going to go back to wrestling, and I'm going to give back to that industry that has been so very good to me. So I went back and I had an incredible 3-year run in the WWE. We set records, pay-per-view buy rate records when they were operating under a pay-per-view model, the WWE. And the locker room benefited. Everybody got paid a little bit more money, which was great. The company benefited, which was great. And I was able to get back to a business that's been so good to me. And finally, I would recommend to you guys out there is always surround yourself with good people, because you're a product. We are all a product of our environment and the environment we come from. You are in control with who you place around you and the people that you keep around you. So I try to keep the best people around me. I don't keep yes people around me. These are people who all have an opinion. They're all very smart, a lot smarter than I am at what they do. And we all push each other. So thank you for your questions. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. 17 minutes of your life. You're never going to get back. We're going to get through this thing. You guys stay healthy. Take care of one another. And I am getting a lot of questions about the coronavirus, of course, and I will, and a lot of questions that I've been getting regarding the coronavirus is, do I have any more information that you guys have? Well, not much, but I will share that very soon and how I feel about that. That's for another Q&A too as well. So thank you guys so much. Stay healthy, and thanks for the questions. I appreciate it. Love you guys. Chat soon.
Be sure to like, share, comment and subscribe to WWF AA Era.